My main objectives as Academy Manager, my roles and responsibilities are to ensure that our Academy vision is being carried out both in the short and long term. It's also to make sure that all of our departments are working together in order to make sure that our strategic objectives are being achieved, both from an operational perspective in terms of the day-to-day and the week-by-week, but also making sure that our medium to long-term goals are also being achieved. As well as that is making sure that I have good relationships with the key stakeholders at the football club, the head of football, chief exec and our board, to make sure that they're aware fully of what's happening throughout the academy, again both from the short term and long term objectives. I come from a coaching background, so a lot of my qualifications come in coaching, so things like UEFA B, UEFA A licence, professional development phase, FA Advanced Youth Award, as well as now having a programme bespoke to me in part of my role as Academy Manager, which is run by the Premier League, called the EAM programme, as well as the sort of actual qualifications and certification that you get as part of those courses and programmes. I'm very fortunate to have worked as the foundation phase, the youth development phase and the professional development phase lead coach at my current club. So I have a fairly good insight into all of the different age ranges that we have, all the way from under 9s all the way through to under 21s. So that's a bit of background on me and some of the qualifications that helped me get into the position as Academy Manager as I am currently. In my role as Academy Manager, I'm line managed by our sporting director, so I'll meet with our sporting director once a week, and I'll also meet with our chief exec once every 6 weeks in our technical board meetings formally, and obviously there's lots of informal conversations that go on every day, every other day, a few times a week regarding all different strands of the academy. In my role as Academy Manager, I'll work very closely with all of our departments. That's really important. So our departments will be management and operations, will be talent ID and recruitment, will be coaching, will be performance support, and will be education and player care. So there'll be lots of different people to meet with, to speak with, to ensure that we're carrying out what we should be doing in all of those different departments. I'm a massive believer that the closely you work together and the more that your programme is aligned from all of the departments working intertwined with one another, the more successful you'll be. So is that your education department working with your coaching programme? That might be around players on day release, or it might be on players and how they're getting on at school, or is your sports scientist ensuring that he's working with the coaching staff to ensure that they're doing what they should be doing every day in terms of perhaps recovery, nutrition, their work in the gym, their prehab, their physical loading throughout the week so that sessions can be designed correctly. So working very closely with all of our departments, as I've mentioned there, and like I said, I'm a massive believer in ensuring that all of those departments integrate with one another really successfully, because obviously that heightens your chances of producing young footballers and good young people. I think the role as an assistant coach is a really important one. I've been both a lead coach and an assistant coach at various different levels, age groups and capacities. I think quite a few times when you are the lead coach and you're at the forefront of the session and driving training sessions or fixtures and such like, you might miss a few things. And I think it's a really important relationship that the assistant coach has a lot of autonomy and responsibility in picking up on things that perhaps might be seen with a slightly different eye or a different perspective, and the communication between the assistant coach and obviously the lead coach is a really important one. I also think that sometimes not being engrossed in the session throughout the whole duration of it means that once you take a backward step, you can maybe speak to certain individuals or certain units in a slightly different way to what the lead coach might do whilst addressing the whole group. So it's a really important role. I think it's one that needs a certain type of skill set, but I think that gone are the days of a coach working with a group of players on his own and trying to get the best out of them is very difficult. I think the use of an assistant coach and a multidisciplinary team, whether that be a physio, sports scientists, analysts and such like, is becoming a lot more evident. But the role of an assistant coach is one that I would say is really key, and to make sure that both the assistant and the lead coach know whose sort of main roles and responsibilities lie with each individual is a really important one, both in training and on a match day. I think the key characteristics of an assistant coach in football is really varied. I think you need to have really good emotional intelligence, particularly at the older age groups and the more senior level that you get. There's a lot of pressure on managers, there's a lot of pressure on players, and to try and take that pressure away from certain managers at certain times, I think is a really important skill to know when and how to do that. I think communication is obviously really key, not just how you communicate in terms of vocalising certain things, but just listening both to your staff and to your players. I think that sometimes coaches in general will tend to want to tell players what to do and how to help them, but I think sometimes the role of an assistant coach is perhaps to just take that little step back and listen to how the players are finding certain sessions, certain parts of certain sessions, or certain things that might pop up during games that maybe they're struggling to deal with, and that second pair of eyes might just be able to support them with that. So emotional intelligence, communication, awareness are very important. Obviously, in order to be a good coach, you need the technical and tactical awareness or capabilities to be able to put on sessions that are going to really challenge the players. But in general, I think all of those skills that I've mentioned there are very important. But like anything, I think it comes down to relationships and how you can deal with people. So I would say that would be the number one priority as an assistant coach, to make sure that you can form good relationships with people, because ultimately if you can get the best out of individuals and collective groups of players and staff, then you're going to be an asset to any organisation. At our club, we have a lot of discussion and a lot of meetings to ensure that communication is a really key part of our programme. Often you'll find that mistakes can happen, which when you go back through how and why that perhaps happened, communication tends to be the one that, if that's not done correctly, things can start to unravel and maybe mistakes can tend to happen. So I think communication is a really important part of being a coach, being an assistant coach, but in the main being part of a multidisciplinary team. And I think that is it. I think making sure that the success of a team or a group of players or a certain individual isn't down to one individual person. That's down to a collective group of people that have goals, that have processes, that make sure that all of their roles and responsibilities are aligned to make sure that they get the best out of that, like I say, group, individual, or perhaps unit at that any given time. So it's really important, and I think that the best communicators tend to ensure that they get the best out of people. I think the role of an assistant coach is very important, particularly when it comes to ensuring that the lead coach or the manager has the time, has the energy, and has the resource at their disposal to be able to dip in and out when they feel is most important. Trying to take the load off lead coaches, I think, is a really important skill to have as an assistant coach. I think that can help players as well, so it naturally gives a different voice and slight differences during perhaps training sessions or team meetings and things like that. And just even having a different pair of eyes can sometimes just stimulate certain debate. certain slight differences, like I say, within sessions and games that might just then cause more conversation, might get people thinking that little bit differently, and therefore might stimulate players in a different way to maybe a lead coach might do. I think those softer skills are very important because ultimately they're perhaps not the ones that have the final say on picking the team. So trying to get a player's perspective of that and the staff's perspective of that, and maybe being the one to communicate that through to those players and what they can do to improve, again, is really important skill. So there's loads of different needs or loads of different aspects of being an assistant coach that are needed in order for it to be successful. But I would say that they're the key ones for me. Lastly, I love working in football. Football is all I know. Ever since I was a young boy, I played football, and then when I finished playing football, I started my coaching career fairly early on. I don't see it as a job. I'm very, very fortunate to be in the position that I am, because I know that there's a lot of people that don't work in football that would love to be in the position that I am. So would I recommend it to anybody? Yes, I would. What I would say is if it's something that you enjoy, and if it's something that makes you get out of bed every morning with a smile on your face, then it's something that you should definitely consider. Like I said, I've been doing this now in full-time coaching and football for the last 15 and a bit years, and I can't think of a day where I've come into work and not enjoyed myself. There might be times where it's not the best thing at that given time, but certainly when I reflect and look back to some things that maybe some of my friends or family might do in comparison to myself, I count myself as very lucky. And I'm very fortunate to be in full-time football, so I would recommend it to anybody that would like to get involved, absolutely.